so weary, but I must go along till the Lord comes and calls me away. Oh, yes, where the morn.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Divine Science, and thanks for hanging out with me for the next hour. Whoa, what? An hour? You're gonna be I'm gonna be talking to you for an hour? Yes, but it's not gonna be video. I do not want to sit here for an hour, for one, and for two, I don't think you could probably barely take 10 minutes of my face. So no, not a video that lasts an hour, but it is audio that lasts an hour. If you guys remember, if you're a frequent watcher of The Divine Science, a couple blogs back, we had The Great Divider Part 2, which I had Pastor Hammock on the program. We talked about Wall Street protests and what Christians are saying about the Wall Street protests and how that theology is skewed and stuff like that. Now, I was graciously admitted to be on his program. And not only with Pastor Hammock, but also his co-host, Priscilla, who you guys will hear momentarily. So we talked about Christmas. Why not, right? It's the time of year. It is Christmas time. So why not talk about what Christmas is, what Christians should think about Christmas, and some of the controversies that are in our time today. So sit back, relax. If it's cold where you are, enjoy the cold, because I love winter. And look, I live in Grand Forks, the second coldest city in the United States, and it's still no snow outside. So I'm a little disappointed. Where's the snow? I'm a California boy. I came here I didn't come here for the snow, but I like to see it if I'm here. So I'm waiting on the snow. So enjoy where you are. Thanks for watching, listening in this case. Helping you take back this country, and we'll talk to you soon.
Welcome, everyone, to the News in Focus program. It is Thursday, December the 8th, 2011. It is currently 9:48 p.m. Central Time. And tonight, once again, Priscilla is back with us. So tell everyone hello, Priscilla, or say hello. I guess you could tell everyone, but say hello and, well, tell us what's been going on with you.
Okay. Whoa, my voice just cracked right there. Hey everybody, it's Priscilla, all the way from Albuquerque, New Mexico. It is currently 8:49 p.m. Mountain Time. I'm actually very happy that I got my voice back. My voice has been lost for the past 4 days or so. I've been waking up with no voice, so I feel a lot better, and I'm glad that I can record and actually sound like a human being. So that's great. And then just been busy with school. Finals are over next week, so can't wait for that.
That is awesome. And school is going pretty good for me. I'll have to write a paper coming up shortly, and I'll probably be talking about that more at a later time. But tonight,
Cool.
Priscilla and we're being joined by a special guest. Yeah, I guess that's what we'll call him. A special guest, but a friend of the program. I've been on his program. Tonight he's now on our program. So we'll let him introduce himself, tell you about his program, his blog, and how he found the News in Focus program, and a little bit about himself. So it's all yours.
Sure. All right. Well, hey, guys, I'm Drake. You guys have heard me before on the News in Focus program. If you've gone to my blog, you've heard Pastor Hammock and myself there, too. I have a blog called the Divine Science on blogspot.com, and I talk about politics, and I talk about it in a Christian perspective. I don't flat out use the Bible most of the time, which is actually changing because I feel a shift in what is important. But I do come at politics through a Christian perspective. If you guys are curious in checking out the website, it's Drake's Politics at .blogspot.com. And I found Pastor Hammock through Sermon Audio. Just saw the app that I'm sure most people with their awesome iPhones or Androids downloaded the app and just started listening to random sermons. And of course, I went straight to the news part because that's what I love. And coincidentally, Pastor Hammock, well, I guess you had just uploaded your picture at the time, but your face was like planted all across the News and Focus. So of course I had to pick you. So I got a choice. But, so yeah, and I heard him, and I really liked your theology. I used to be Arminian,
really?
but now believe in, of course, I guess predestination or election. So I really like the theology and where you can, or your education really intrigued me. So that's how I found Pastor Ham.
And what's interesting is Priscilla found us the same way through the Sermon Audio app. So once again, I thank Sermon Audio for helping us create the app and placing it on there and having the Sermon Audio app and also the Victory Baptist Church app. So tell people who have iPhones and Androids to download the app, because sooner or later, even if it's the Sermon Audio app, they're going to find me because I record so many programs for the News and Focus program. There's probably some people going, why does he keep showing up on my iPhone? And they're taking it back to the store. This thing is defective. I want this guy removed. But you can't get rid of me. I'm kind of like a bad disease.
Yeah.
There's no cure for me right now. So
or whatever you catch up to.
Sooner or later.
What did you say, Drake?
Or whenever we catch up to your programs, like, okay, I've listened to them all, and then you post like 10 in an hour. like today.
Same thing. I always have to I download them to my iTunes, and I'll miss like a few days, and then I have to just spend like a whole few hours just downloading. So great job. So the User Focus is a blessing. So I hope everybody is enjoying and learning from these programs.
And tonight we're going to turn to something really controversial. And so this is what I'm going to do. All the hate mail that I'm going to receive at the end of this program, I'm simply forwarding it to Drake and to Priscilla.
Yes.
I'm not going to, I will read it, but I know we're going to get a lot of hate mail because tonight we're going to talk about the most controversial thing in the world, Christmas. Dum, 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 dum. It's like, you would think of all the things that could be controversial within Christianity, Christmas would be one of those things that would be like, whatever. But no, every year when you get to this time of year, you start seeing all the posts on Facebook and on Twitter and everywhere else about Christmas and how evil it is and why we should stay away from it. Or there's all kinds of arguments of what we should do with it. So tonight, all three of us are going to talk about the controversies surrounding Christmas, or it probably would make more sense to say the Christmas controversies. And hopefully, when we are done, you'll have learned a little bit about the controversies, be challenged in how you look at each one, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be able to calm down a little bit over the next few days, have a glass of eggnog, and relax and maybe enjoy this time of year. Others will not, and they're going to be very upset with some of our opinions, but that's perfectly okay. All we ask of you is to do this. Listen to everything we have to say, think logically, and think biblically. And if you do that, I think we can all come to a closer agreement on many of the issues surrounding Christmas. So let's start with a question for everyone on this panel for this special episode. We'll start with Drake.
Uh-oh.
Drake.
Yes.
Have you celebrated Christmas in the past, and were you raised celebrating Christmas? And after you became a Christian, did you continue? Were you ever challenged about your celebration of Christmas? Did you ever find yourself in controversy as a result of celebrating Christmas?
For the first part, yes, I was raised celebrating Christmas. I believed in Santa Claus until I was in, fourth grade. As a believer, I was led to salvation my senior year of high school. After that, my views on Christmas did change, obviously, like everything did. And I did see the materialistic, the I guess, the facades of what society says Christmas is, what it really should be, or what other people say it should be. Like, what is the point of Santa Claus? I ask myself that. Why do we give each other presents? Why is it one day and not a season? So I started asking questions like that. And of course, if you bring that up to anybody, it's like asking. It's almost questioning your faith. It's like asking if was Jesus really the incarnate Son of God, or so people would attack you the same way. So.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what I'm trying to establish here is let the audience know if we have any presuppositions. And I think what we're going to find is probably all of our presuppositions is that we've all celebrated Christmas. So we'll make sure the audience knows where we're coming from. Priscilla, how about you? Now, and for those who don't know, Priscilla is a new believer. So this is her first year as a believer dealing with the subject of Christmas. So her perspective will be interesting. So tell us about your past and where you are now.
Okay. Well, while I was growing up as a child, we celebrated Christmas, usually just with Christmas parties, family parties, exchanging of gifts. I mean, growing up, you hear, like, here and there about, like, Jesus' birth and stuff. Never really centered around Christ at all. Growing up as a child, that's what I was, pretty much how we celebrated it. Then throughout, like, my teenage years and stuff like that, Christmas is just like another holiday to me. Buy people gifts. I mean, you make gingerbread houses, you decorate the tree. Historically, I knew that it had to do somewhat with Jesus' birth, but since God saved me in January, I mean, I had to deal with a lot of different doctrinal beliefs, and I struggled through a lot of different things about my Christian walk. And now coming up to Christmas, I was not aware that it was this controversial. Going on Facebook and seeing all kinds of different debates saying that, like, don't celebrate it, do celebrate it, it's satanic, it's not satanic, all these crazy things. And I'm like, whoa, I never even knew it was this controversial. So now my plan this Christmas holiday, I've been reading a lot about the history of Christmas, Advent, and now I'm really excited to just have a really Christ-centered Christmas, celebrating the birth of Lord Jesus Christ, and see how this season, how God is gonna be glorified through it, and see the difference within, like, our family celebration. And I'm actually really excited, and I'm really excited to tackle these controversies because I want to know how to deal with them too.
Awesome. And for me, I was raised in basically a non-Christian home, so Christmas was about presents and so-called Santa Claus. When I was in kindergarten, I walked in and asked my parents if Santa Claus was real. They told me yes. So I said, okay. So then I went directly to get the encyclopedias. I looked it up, came back, and said, you're both liars. I've got it right here in the encyclopedia. He's, it's mythology, doesn't exist. You're liars. Why did you make this stuff up? And I was really angry that my parents were lying to me about this myth, this person who didn't exist and did not bring me presents. So I was done with the Santa Claus myth by the time of kindergarten, because I already knew how to read before I entered kindergarten. So that was quick and over, and I was done. And I was angry. I was like, dude, you made this up. This is a lie. Come on, what else are you lying to me about? So from that point forward, it was about presents. My parents kept trying to play the whole Santa Claus thing, but I knew it was fake, and I knew it wasn't real. And they were mad when I told my brother that he's being played and it wasn't real. And I told and I went to school and told everyone it wasn't real. So I was not very popular with my anti-Santa Claus phase that I went through as a child. But I couldn't believe. And so if my mom took me to a department store and there was a Santa Claus there, I would walk up and scream at all the kids that he wasn't real. So I was a little rebel back then. So I didn't get along with that whole thing. So I became a Christian when I was in high school. God saved me when I was in high school. And at that point, I started saying, okay, Christmas is about Christ, but I didn't really know what to do with that. Okay, all right, Christmas is supposed to be about Christ. I didn't know the history. I didn't know anything. And for most churches, it was like, it's Christmas. Jesus was born. We're going to have a special service on Christmas Eve. They never had services on Christmas Day. The church was closed. And I just didn't really feel that it was really that Christ-centered too much. There was some talk about it. And I found myself struggling as an adult that, before you know it, Christmas was here. It was a day, and it was over. And I never really found a way to, to truly make it about Christ, or struggled with it. And so even till today, I try my best. I still celebrate Christmas, and I try to make it about Christ, but sometimes I still find it a struggle. And the reason I wanted to go around there is, again, that's letting the audience know all of us will have a presupposition because we all celebrate Christmas. Priscilla may have less of one because this is her first year as a Christian. So be aware of our presuppositions, and if our presuppositions get in the way, then we'll, please point that out to us. But we will try our best to look past our presuppositions, look at each controversy from the position of truth, not the position of our presuppositions, and that's easier said than done. But unless you're aware of your presupposition, you can't avoid it. So hopefully that will help us try. So let's start with controversy number 1.
All right.
Should we celebrate Christmas, or should we avoid it because of its supposed pagan connections? So we'll start with Drake. What do you think, and how do you justify the celebration of Christmas and your understanding of its possible pagan connections?
Okay, well, I think we should absolutely celebrate Christmas. I think in itself, Christmas, there's nothing wrong with it. Just like Jesus says, it's not what goes into a man, but what comes out. I think the idea in itself is not evil or demonic or has any or displeases God or anything like that. However, it gets morphed like anything does. Back when the church was created, it morphed into the papacy and stuff that it wasn't meant to be as well. But in a sense, I don't think Christmas or celebrating Christmas is wrong. And I think biblically we can celebrate Christmas in a sound manner that pleases God.
Okay. And then I'll answer next because Priscilla has a lot of notes that she may want to share with everyone, and then me and Drake will respond to what she has. But here's my position on this. First, is December the 25th possibly linked with certain pagan origins? Let's say it's 1,000% proven to be linked. All right. So what should we do on December the 25th? Should we just not talk about Christ and say we're not going to do anything? All right. If we don't talk about Christ on December the 25th, when can we talk about him? Can we talk about him on Monday, which comes from a pagan name of Moon Day, or Thursday, which comes from Thor's Day, or Saturday, Saturn, or Sunday for the sun, not Jesus? And even the days of the week have pagan origins. So should we avoid using the days of the week or the days of the month? If we go back and try to find the pagan origin or where paganism was connected with something, we'll end up, I don't know what we'll do. We'll move to some place. Hopefully there were never any pagans who lived there. And we'll all, huddle around and never do anything. Is December the 25th, is that day possibly connected with some pagan origin? Let's say it is. But why? What different? It's just a day. It's a 24-hour period that's been set aside for Christians to remember the incarnation of the eternal Son of God. There's nothing pagan about that. Now, we can bring in pagan ideas and maybe pagan practices into the Christmas celebration, but that's an entire different issue. If I simply use December the 25th to celebrate the birth of Christ, I don't see the problem. We don't know the exact day he was born, so you could try to move it and say, well, some people believe it was in April, and pick a day in April and celebrate it. Well, go ahead. People may look at you weird and want to know what you're doing, but whatever day you pick, there's a good chance if I look far enough in history, I'll find some pagan origin that's connected to that day as well. So we could talk about why did the early church put it on, the Roman Catholic Church is the one blamed for putting it on December the 25th, and maybe they were trying to put it there as an alternative for pagan worship, and maybe we question that act. But today, in 2011, nobody's thinking about the pagan origin of December the 25th other than a few Christians who seem to be caught up in that. For the rest of us, for me and my church, we'll be at church on December the 25th. We'll have a full day of worship, and we'll talk about the incarnation, doctrinal implications, the theology of the incarnation, and we'll have a wonderful day remembering the incarnation of Jesus Christ. And I don't know how anyone could condemn Christians gathering, preaching from the Word, to celebrate the birth of their Savior. I don't see how that's evil in any way, shape, or form in doing that. Now, this raises up some other questions in how we should celebrate, and we'll get to that later. But for now, simply celebrating the birth of Christ on December the 25th, I don't see any problem. And every person who emails me, again, you're emailing me, are you using a computer and a computer software created by a lost person? Well, should you be using it? You can't separate yourself from the influence of non-Christian religions on our world. They're there. The key is, what am I going to do on that day? Am I celebrating the paganism, or am I celebrating Christ? That's the real issue. And Priscilla?
Okay, well, I actually have a few questions. This question might not be so popular, but I've heard this from Facebook and other different people talking to me. I know, or that you know too, the celebration of a birthday is, I believe in the Satanic Bible, is one of the main holidays to celebrate your own birth.
Absolutely.
How do we play that in with Christ?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Say that again.
And how do we play that in with Christ? I mean, I truly believe that we should celebrate the birth of our Savior. But how do you deal with that type of controversy?
Okay. No, that's a great question. All right. Anton LaVey's argument is that we should celebrate our birth because basically in Satanism you are your own God.
Mhm.
It's all about you. So why would you not celebrate a day for you? Well, celebrating the birth of Christ would make sense since we believe he is God.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so we would believe he deserves all honor, all praise, all glory, and we would say that there's no problem. Now, you could argue about celebrating our own birthdays. That's a whole different subject for a different podcast, but no one could argue from utilizing, that it's in the Satanic Bible, the birthday, because for this case, we're actually celebrating the birth of someone who deserves all praise because he's eternal and took upon human flesh, stepped into history and time to redeem a people for himself. So clearly, it would make perfect sense to celebrate his birth, even if you use that argument.
Okay, that makes sense.
But that's a very good question, though. Very good question.
Yeah, I was thinking about that a lot today. And then also, I mean, I've done a lot of research and a lot of different. There is a bunch of different pagan, so-called pagan theories of how Christmas kind of derives from them. I'll just give people the background so they're informed. One of the major themes is during the Romans, I believe. Let's see, I have it in my notes here. The Romans celebrated the sun god. And that would begin in the middle of December and would last till about January. And they decorated their homes and trees and lit candles. And they actually they would actually give gifts during this time for good luck. So that's just one of the things. But again, there's a bunch of different pagan origins. But another thing with the way it brought into the Christian life during the reign, I believe, of Constantine. I mean, Advent was going on, but Constantine, he was a converted Christian. He just tend to, right?
Supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly a converted Christian. Yeah.
Supposedly.
There would be much argument about was he a true Christian, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he kind of incorporated the pagan winter with the birth of Jesus Christ. And then eventually the church was successful in having Jesus replaced with the pagan celebration. So that's just a little background of how like it came about, and I'm glad that I even got to do this study.
Right, and it's very true. There is some movement of trying to put Christmas at a time of the pagan celebration. However, it's also true that Advent was already being celebrated, which was a period of time. Originally, I think it was 40 days to remember the coming of Christ, and then they expanded it to remember like the second coming of Christ. It was a time of fasting, and it was a time of repentance, and there are certain things you couldn't do during Advent. And so a lot of people forget that Advent was already a time in the early church where they celebrated the coming of Christ. So it would naturally flow from this taking a period of time to think about the first coming and the second coming, that ultimately that would end in a celebration of the actual coming of Jesus Christ and his incarnation. It would make perfect sense, a natural progression. The dating of when to celebrate the incarnation, that's the controversial part, but now we live in a culture, especially here in America, where it's a federal holiday. So what are you going to do? Okay, it's a federal holiday. I'm gonna take the day off from work, but I'm not celebrating Christmas, and I'm not going to go to church. Why not just use the day that they're giving you off from work to celebrate Christ and to spend time proclaiming his word? To me, it's just a good use of time, and if that's the day our government's giving us, and most places shut down on Christmas, or at least a large percentage of places, use that time to talk about Christ. I don't see how it's, we're just redeeming the time. It's already a federal holiday, at least here in the United States of America. Just make the most of it and move on. And if it was a different day, then I would say the same thing. There's nothing special about December the 25th. It's simply a day on the calendar, and we use it to remember the first coming of Jesus Christ. Just like in the early church, they use certain days to remember John the Baptist, or certain days to remember when Mary took Jesus into the temple, and certain days to remember the Trinity. There's nothing special about the day on the calendar. It's simply a period of time used to remember a biblical event, and we believe Jesus was truly born. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with picking a day to study that historical event.
And
all right.
And any holiday, besides Christmas, if there's a pagan group that worshipped this week of this season and worshiped to this God, and then an apostle came and talked to them, told them the truth, they all believed it, and then they adapted what they were doing to the worship of Christ and the worship of his Son and Orthodox teachings. Is there anything wrong with that? I mean,
well,
if
again,
it's not Christmas or anything.
Right.
I mean, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, this is what I would say. There would be nothing wrong with using that day. Now, if they incorporated the pagan practices into the celebrating of Christ, that's when you have to go, well, wait a minute, now we got to be careful. But just the day itself and celebrating Christ, I mean, again, you could look at, I looked up one time a religious calendar of like every religion known under the sun and all of their special religious days. I mean, there's something always going on in some religion for some day. So literally you could trace everything to some pagan day of some false religion and say, okay, well, you can't have church on Wednesday. You can't have church on Sunday. And pretty soon you can't do anything. So, yeah, if people were celebrating something on a Thursday, they become Christians, and they decide to use Thursday to remember the attributes of God, well, there's nothing wrong. They're simply using Thursday to remember the attributes of God. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, if they bring in their paganism to celebrate the true God, then that's when you have the problem.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, Priscilla, that you have about should we celebrate Christmas?
Not at the moment. I want to know how we should,
Okay,
but I believe we'll get into that a little bit later. Right?
All right. And Drake, anything else to say about should we celebrate it?
No, I think that was a good summarization. I think.
All right, good. All right, now we'll get all the emails, and every year I do. And I think a year ago or 2 years ago, I dealt with this controversy. So if someone goes to the News and Focus programs and type in Christmas, you'll find where I have this debate with someone about the subject, and it was crazy. So probably happen again now. But so there we go. So all three of us believe it's perfectly okay to celebrate the Incarnation on December the 25th.
Yes,
Plain
I
and
guess
simple.
Yeah.
All right. So we've decided we're going to celebrate it. Now we have to deal with how should we celebrate it. And that leads us into the next controversial person, figure, and that is Santa Claus. Or I've heard some preachers refer to the poor guy as Satan Claus. Ooh. What do we do with jolly old Saint Nick? Well, there was someone by the name of Saint Nick, so there's nothing about studying him and figuring out what he did. But Saint Nick is a far, far, far stretch from Santa Claus, who knows if you've been naughty or nice, and he's keeping a list and he's checking it twice, and he lives in the North Pole and he has flying reindeer. It makes for a good fantasy story. But should we bring Santa Claus into the celebration of the incarnation of the Son of God? This becomes the issue. So for this, we'll start with Priscilla. Now, again, you're a new Christian. What's your thoughts about Santa? How do you think we approach this from a Christian perspective? And just be honest, and if me and Drake disagree with you, then we'll tell you.
Okay. This is kind of, difficult. I mean, to study up about him, yeah, he's a historical figure. He did, give out gifts to, poor children, so he was a good man. The thing is, it's I guess parents, in a sense, they tell their children that Santa's real, which is basically a lie. But then they go around to say that he knows, he's kind of all-knowing and he's all good, and kind of just replacing Christ. And it's kind of deceptive to children because children love gifts. I love gifts. Everybody loves gifts. Santa's the one to give it. And you are too busy trying to please Santa Claus instead of trying to please Christ. And Christmas kind of centers more around Santa than it does Christ. My Christmases always were surrounded by Santa Claus, which will be different this year. But then again, you get media in the world that's centered around Santa Claus with Coca-Cola and all that stuff. But it's pretty, I don't know, I don't know how Christians actually handle Santa Claus. Do they tell their children about Santa Claus, that he's real, he's not real? Is he even in Christmas for a Christian? I don't really know that part of it.
Okay, and that's very honest. Here's my take on it, that we'll let Drake finish up this question. Here's mine. It's going to be blunt, it's going to be mean, and it's not going to be nice. If you're a Christian, Santa Claus has absolutely no place in the celebration of the incarnation of the Son of God. Zero, none, doesn't, nada, no. It doesn't belong in any way, shape, or form. It was not Santa Claus who arrived in Bethlehem and slid down a chimney. It wasn't. It wasn't Santa Claus who showed up on a camel to worship the baby Jesus. Well, that was a little time after Bethlehem, but you get the idea. He wasn't there. He's not found in the Gospel of Matthew. He's not there in the Gospel of Luke. He doesn't exist. He's a mythological creation based on someone in history, but don't tell me, well, St. Nick really existed. Well, the St. Nick you're telling your kids about is not the one who's dead. You're talking about someone who you are trying to convince your child is alive, who knows what they're doing, and can arrive at their house on December the 25th to place the toys underneath the tree. And, woo, it's Santa Claus. Yes, it may be a nice little child fantasy, but leave it in fantasy. Don't tell them that he's real. So this is what I did. I told my kids, Santa Claus doesn't exist, period. End of story. All these people are liars. They're all liars, okay? Every stinking one of them, okay? When the news on December the 24th says they're tracking, Noah, they're tracking Santa, and it's not true. They're not tracking Santa. And when, you can go to the websites where they're supposedly tracking Santa and do everything they can to convince the kids that this is real. It's simply a lie, and Christians are told not to lie. So I don't know how you can get around it. You can't tell people someone exists who doesn't exist. And to me, just if I'm one of those kids who's very logical and analytical, if mom and dad lied to me about Santa, then why aren't they? How do I know they're not lying to me about Jesus?
Yeah.
To me, it's a logic. So to me, you don't put him a part of Christmas because he has nothing to do with the incarnation of the Son of God, and he doesn't exist. Therefore, I can't lie to my kids, and I'm not going to lie to my kids. And I've heard Christians justify it every which way under the sun, but there's no way to justify lying. You're deceiving your kids on purpose because you think they need this to be, a healthy adult. Well, maybe they'll grow up and become, a serial killer. And it's all because you told them Santa didn't exist, but at least you didn't lie to them. That's at least something you can console yourself with. I destroyed my kid, but I didn't lie to him. And sometimes, truth may not be fun, truth may not be exciting, and truth may take away the so-called fun of the holiday. But for Christians, why would you add something to the celebration of the incarnation of the Son of God? This is what I think. I think Christians somehow are bored with the fact that God became man, and so Santa is more exciting. And whenever you place Santa in it, don't tell me it's about Jesus anymore, because it's not. Because all your kids are going to be thinking about is this amazing story of this guy who has flying reindeer who shows up at your house when, no matter how hard you try to stay awake, you end up missing him, and there's all these presents. That's going to capture the child's imagination. That's what it's going to be about, and Jesus is going to be some old story for old people, and the kids are going to forget it. So, no, I'm absolutely 1,000% opposed to it and have never allowed him to have anything to do with our celebration of the birth of Christ. All right, Drake. It's all yours, man.
Yeah, well, this seems to happen a lot, and I'm not doing it on purpose. But I agree with Pastor Hammock on this. Christians, like 1,000%, no. Why are you telling your kids there's a fat guy in a red suit with a beard that has nothing even to look like the Saint Nicholas at all?
Right.
And then again, having that, if your child finds out that he doesn't exist. Well, then why does Jesus exist? That's just as crazy as Santa Claus.
Right.
And it's hard to bridge that gap. And now for the secular side, I can really care less if they believe in Santa Claus.
Right.
That's just a way for them to incorporate themselves in a federal holiday in a season that never should have been a federal holiday, I believe. But so yeah, Christians, it's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why you would tell your kids that at all, and it really, to me, it has a golden calf kind of element to it, like you were saying. Santa Claus takes the place of Christ, and I think that is exactly right. And people get scared of making images of Jesus, so they get bored. We can't see him. I don't know what to do. Hey, let's make Santa Claus and have him have all the attributes of Jesus. Yes. And so I mean, and after becoming a Christian, that popped out almost immediately. That was a conviction that was pretty immediate for me.
Right, and it's just amazing how upset people can get. I was talking to Priscilla and Drake before the program, and I explained to them that I became a pastor, and the very first Christmas as a pastor, I had only been a pastor like 6 months, I told everyone in the church, like in October, hey, when we get close to Christmas time, I'm going to say he doesn't exist. And all the Sunday school teachers are going to be instructed to tell the kids the fat man in the red suit doesn't exist. I tried to be as discreet as I could when I gave the announcement, so everyone was warned. December came around. I did a sermon series about Christmas, said Santa didn't exist, that he shouldn't be a part of our celebration. People were furious, and I lost almost half of my congregation, ultimately as a result of the controversy that broke out because I said someone didn't exist who doesn't exist. So Christians got mad that I spoke truth from the pulpit Because, and I even asked them, okay, if you're mad that I said Santa didn't exist, bring him to my house. All you got to do is prove to me that he does, and I will repent in sackcloth and ashes for ever having the audacity to stand up and say he didn't exist. Well, they couldn't produce him because he doesn't exist. So what I said was true. And when you get in trouble from speaking truth in the pulpit, the American church is in trouble. And sadly, though, I've seen churches have a Christmas party and they bring in some guy dressed up as Santa.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
I didn't know that.
have you lost your mind? Okay, I don't even get it. I don't even know why it's a controversy. So, December the 25th, you want to celebrate the birth of Christ? Great. Santa doesn't have anything to do with it for Christians. For non-Christians, makes perfect sense. They don't celebrate Christ. It's a federal holiday. They got to celebrate something. So they've turned Christmas into this whole mystical, magical time where there's Santa Claus and there's gifts and there's peace on earth and goodwill to all men. And they take a couple of verses out of context from the Bible, sing some, Christmas songs that may talk about Christ, but that's wonderful. We don't really think about him much. And they have their celebration, but I don't care what the world does. The world they can celebrate Christmas by, building a snowman, standing on their head. It doesn't matter what they want to do. It's they don't have Christ, so what do I expect from them? But for Christians, if you're going to celebrate Christmas, then celebrate Christ or stop saying you're celebrating Christ. It's either or. Don't celebrate Christmas in any way, shape, or form, or don't claim it's about Jesus and then do whatever you want to do, but do not lie to your kids, plain and simple. You should at least have enough character to not lie to your kids and make them believe something is real that's not. It would be like me getting your kids on October the 15th, and I tell them and I convince them that there is a monster who lives in their town, and every night on October the 31st, he breaks into houses and kills children. And I 1,000% convinced them it was real. You know how many parents would be upset with me? How dare you?
The other half of your congregation at least.
You lied to them. How dare you make my kids believe this? Now they're scarred. They can't go to sleep. Well, what's the difference? You're going to tell them a fat man breaks into their house and gives them presents. Well, I just told them a fat monster's going to break into the house and eat them. What's the difference? Both of them are lies. Both of them are myths. So what's the difference? Well, yeah, now they get upset about the lying to the kids. See, it's not about they don't really care about the lie as much as they care about what's being told to their kids, and they have no problem with that lie being sold to their kids. So that means that they don't care about lying. And I don't know how Christians can get away with that in any way, shape, or form. So, yeah, I would not celebrate Santa Claus in any way, shape, or form as a Christian because he doesn't exist. All right. That leads us to our third subject, the so-called War on Christmas. And we'll let Drake take this because this is what one of the things he wanted to talk about. So we'll let Drake take this topic and see where he wants to go with it.
All right, yeah. This, of course, following the news, you're going to bump into this all the time. And I go to a lot of conservative websites because, hey, I'm a conservative, so of course I'm going to go there. Now, I go to liberal ones too, but usually to see how wrong they are, but whatever. But Fox News, and I don't go there all the time, but I listen to Bill O'Reilly every now and then. He has a segment called The Culture Warrior, where he talks about different things in the culture that's bringing society down, and we're getting close to the precipice of society downfall and stuff like that. Well, Pastor Hamby, as you were saying before, every year he does a War on Christmas segment where he points out different things that either the government or an atheist organization or a senator, politician, whatever, is doing things against Christmas, saying it's not a Christmas tree, it's a holiday tree, or it's not Merry Christmas, it's Happy Holidays, because we want to be politically correct for everybody. And somehow Christians have bought into this idea that there is a war on Christmas, and that even goes into Santa Claus, trying to keep Santa Claus into it. And the Christmas tree, I guess the Christmas tree is now a huge integral part of Christmas, and if the Christmas tree goes, Christmas goes, I guess. So this war on Christmas is just as bad, just as big of a lie as Santa Claus is, in my opinion. There is no war on Christmas. If you're trying to fight the non-Christians, what are you doing? I don't know why you would try to defend a Christmas tree or Santa Claus or Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas. That has nothing to do with what we were talking about before. The two previous arguments.
Right.
So, and that's where
absolutely.
I stand on the war on Christmas.
Right, and I would add a couple of things here about the war on Christmas. Number one, it's funny how conservatives get so caught up about the war on Christmas, and we need to get back to the founding principles of the Pilgrims and the people who first came to America. Well, when you first came to America in the 1700s, guess what you could not celebrate? Christmas.
Yeah.
It was outlawed because the Puritans and the Pilgrims were opposed to it. You would have been fined if you celebrated Christmas. It was against the law in America. And the Congress and the Founding Fathers met on December the 25th for like 70 years after they first formed because no one celebrated Christmas. It was outlawed because it was seen as being Roman Catholic and associated with Catholicism, and the Puritans and the Pilgrims were trying to get away from that, so they banned Christmas. So for conservatives who are so much about the Founding Fathers, well, then why do you want Christmas? Right? Yeah. I don't even get the conservatives and their whole connection with the Founding Fathers every time you turn around. But in this issue, they forget the Founding Fathers and say we need Christmas everywhere. So I think it's insane. There's no war on Christmas. You know why? Because on December the 25th, I can go to my church, and we can talk about Christ for 12 hours. We could have a Christmas service that starts at 6 o'clock on Christmas morning and lasts all the way to the next day, and the government doesn't kick in my door and say, what do you do celebrating Christmas? This is outlawed. There's no law. It's a federal holiday. I can celebrate it. So that's not a war. But, yes, Target may not want to say Merry Christmas anymore. Who cares? It's not their job. I don't care if Target says, when I go buy something at Target or any other store and they say Happy Holiday or they say next and they have the next person and they don't say anything to me, I could care less. It's not their job to proclaim Christ. It's the job of the church. And if a congressman doesn't want to call it a Christmas tree, he wants to call it a holiday tree, a light tree, a big tree. I don't care what he calls it. If Walmart wants to call it a Christmas sale, a holiday sale, or just a December sale, I don't care. I don't know why Christians want the culture to do the job of the church. And I've said this before and I've said it again. Don't get upset with the culture not celebrating Christmas. On December the 25th, go walk around your city and see how many churches are open. And if they're closed, maybe you should focus on our problems within Christianity than on the culture's job. Because I guarantee you this year there's going to be churches that close. Many churches, if Christmas doesn't fall on a Sunday, they definitely won't be open. And it's just, I don't get the hypocrisy there. We want to make it about Christ, but yet the church will be closed on the very day we should be worshiping Christ. So I don't see a war on Christmas. I can say Merry Christmas. I can celebrate Christmas. I can do whatever I want to do, and I don't know why it's such an issue. Now, I know, Priscilla, this is all new to you. Have you ever heard of this war on Christmas, and what are your thoughts about all of this?
I've never heard of this war on Christmas, but just listening to you guys, I mean, truth will be true regardless of what people think about it. So if people want to call Christmas like a holiday or winter or whatever they want to call it, it still does not disprove Christ's, the celebration of Christ's birth. It has nothing to do with it. Just like, for instance, I believe it was in California when the atheists were tearing the Bible apart and ripping pieces out of the Bible, ripping it to pieces. Them doing that did not change my belief in Christ. It did not change how I worship Christ, and it had no effect on my Christian walk. So the way the world treats Christmas, I don't expect anything less of them. A lost person is going to act like a lost person. they might find the name Jesus offensive. A lot of people do, but again, I mean, they're lost, and I can't really expect them to proclaim Christ to me if they're not a Christian. So it's interesting that there is this controversy, but again, like, it really has nothing. I don't really see the war in it. I've seen like the effects like in school and stuff where you can't say like Merry Christmas, or you have to say Happy Holidays or Holiday Tree. I mean, that's plain and simple. It's everywhere, but I don't see the truthness in this so-called war on Christmas.
And I would add one thing though, for the schools and for government agencies or congressmen and people who don't want to call it a Christmas tree or don't want to say Merry Christmas, I would point out to the public schools and the congressmen, Christmas is a federal holiday. It's not the federal holiday is not the winter holiday. It is Christmas. Congress made it a federal holiday, so as long as it's federal holiday, then federal agencies should not have a problem with saying, in public schools or any other thing where the government's funding, there should not be an issue with saying Merry Christmas because that's the federal holiday. So I think it's kind of foolish when, we want to be politically correct. That's the federal holiday. Now, personally, I don't believe it should be a federal holiday because by making it a federal holiday, you hurt the possibility of making this truly a religious holiday, because obviously now people who are not Christians have a day off and they're going to celebrate something. So you get all of these traditions coming in that have nothing to do with Christ because you've now made it a day that everyone is supposed to celebrate it in this country.
Yeah, what is happening now is what happens when that.
So go ahead, Drake.
Oh, sorry. No, what you're saying, what you just said, what is happening now is what happens when you make it a federal holiday. It's so convoluted with the war or Christmas, or the non-existent war, Santa. Right. It's just all these things get dumped on top of it that never meant to be there. Yeah,
because you make it a federal holiday, everyone's involved now. All these people are off work. They're supposed to celebrate a holiday. Well, I don't believe in Christ, so I'm not going to celebrate so-called Christmas, but I'm celebrating something on this day. Well, how do we take care of them? And again, if it wouldn't have been, it would be interesting to see what Christians would be doing on December the 25th if it wasn't a federal holiday. It'd be interesting to see what would have became of this entire thing. But for now, that's when the day is, and so I'm going to celebrate the incarnation of Christ, and so far there's no war on me going to church to do so. All right, this leads us to our last controversy. If, as a Christian, if you truly want to celebrate the birth of Christ, if Santa Claus is not a big deal to deal with, the next one is. And it is the subject of materialism. Every year, the whole world gets all excited because the day after Thanksgiving is Black Friday. And, this is a big thing for our economy where retailers try to make bazillions of dollars by offering all kinds of sales to get people in the door, and it's supposed to be a boost to our economy, and everyone watches it to see if this is going to be a good end of the year or a bad end of the year, and it's a big deal. And people buy presents like crazy. And no matter if you're a Christian family or a non-Christian family, you're still impacted by this idea of giving during the holiday season. You are. How do you handle it? Well, every family has to make their own decision. For my family, I'll start with me, this was difficult. It was not that big a deal when it was just me and my wife, but once kids came along and you have grandparents, well, grandparents were sending, 12 U-Haul trucks, beep, 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 backing up at our front door and dumping enough toys that, could have been given to a third world nation, and there would have been toys left over. And there was nothing we could do. They were lost, and you try to tell them, look, we want to make this about Christ. Well, okay, we'll make it about Christ. And still 5 bazillion gifts would show up. And it was a losing battle. It was difficult. It was frustrating. And we did what we could. And in some ways, when they were little, for the kids, it wasn't about Christ. As they got older, The grandparents, of course, cut back a little bit on how many they gave. And so what we always tried to do was this. We always made sure the presents were opened before Christmas Eve. That's the first thing. Then we could take Christmas Eve and Christmas to focus on Christ. All right, so that's one thing we did. We would try to give the gifts not in one day, but like a little over a time. Okay, you got 25 gifts. Okay, on Monday you can have, open 3, and then on Tuesday. And so we tried to kind of make it a period of time where it wasn't this big deal and the presents were nice, but then as it got closer to Christmas, we could turn our attention to going to church and focusing on Christ. And they're not sitting in church going, oh, I can't wait to get home and open my presents, or, oh, I opened my presents 2 hours ago and I want to go home and play, and they're not thinking about church. This way they've already had their gifts, they've been playing with them, probably already broke them all, and so we've already moved on. So that's how we did it. And then as they got older, we started using the season of Advent, with Advent wreaths, lighting candles, doing the readings, and we did things like that. Materialism has always been a part of it, but we tried to minimize it and downplay it and move it ahead so that it didn't affect Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. That's how we handled materialism. Did it work? It works pretty good now. It was very difficult when they were young. And Drake, do you have kids?
No.
Not yet. Well, when you do, or if you do, what do you think about materialism, and how do you think we should handle it as Christians?
Yeah, for me, I guess it would probably be easier to manage the materialism part of Christmas. My parents are Christian. My mom's Presbyterian. My dad's a Roman Catholic. But if I had said, or if I tell them, hey, we're trying to focus this bit more on Christ, could you cut back? I know without a doubt they would say absolutely. Awesome. Which is it's beneficial for me now, like you were saying. You got grandparents that aren't believers, and that's what Christmas is for them. So if you're sorting the kids the material stuff, then they're not experiencing Christmas.
Exactly.
So maybe, like you said, you just have to wait till they get older and try to. Of course, you're praying, asking God to give grace to your children, the strength to maybe discern what's going on and look past that stuff when they get older or whatever. But I would, and that's a great, the strategy you said, I didn't even think of that, but that's a great strategy, because I remember sitting in church with the candlelight services, and, using the wax and pouring it on my fingers and make wax sculptures, just waiting for the service to end so I can open my presents. And if and opening them before, so there's nothing to anticipate, that's a great idea.
Yeah, just get it out of the way a couple of days early. The kids think it's amazing because they're getting their presents early, so they don't feel cheated or neglected or abused, and so they won't be on Oprah telling everyone how they were horribly mistreated. And so that will be a positive thing. And then other kids will be jealous of them because they already got their presents and they're outside playing, so then they think they're all big and bad. But then when church is there's not that anticipation, and their mind is completely focused on something else, then we could focus on Christ. And it worked out pretty good, and they never felt cheated as a result of that. Yeah. What do you think, Priscilla, about materialism and Christmas?
Sorry, my voice is still all cracked out. But again, it's all like pretty new to me, and again, this is like a blessing just hearing you guys talk about it, and because I am personally planning on having children, and I want to know how to make Christ the center of it. And I mean, growing up as a child, presents were what Christmas was all about, Santa Claus and cookies and all that stuff. That's what my Christmas was, and I want it to be different for my children. I want my children to have their mind centered on Christ, especially during the time of that we celebrate his birth. I know how influential the world is, especially, I mean, going to a public school myself, it was all about like gifts and Christmas and all that stuff. So it's gonna be a different toll for me this year, but I really really want to start doing the Advent wreaths and lighting a candle every Sunday. I mean, I've been reading about Advent a lot, and I mean, materialism, gifts are great. I like receiving, but I do love giving, and God gave His Son to us, which is the best gift, and it's a spirit of giving. It shouldn't be centered around gifts, but from, I guess, like my perspective is that we are to give with a joyful spirit, and again, Christmas shouldn't be centered around gifts or anything like that, but it's just another demonstration of the love of Christ, how we should display the love of Christ and the love that God gave to us. But again, it shouldn't be like the center of Christmas. It should be centered around Christ. But again, this is like all new, and I'm so glad that you guys are talking about this. It's very informative.
All right, and I would challenge everyone during this time of year. Advent precedes Christmas. You have 4 Sundays in Advent, and during that time, all the readings, not only on the Sundays but during the week, typically are focusing either on the first coming of Christ or the second coming of Christ. And then you have a number of readings on Christmas Eve night, which you can make that a very special time either with your family or with your church. And then, of course, Christmas Day. It's celebrate the incarnation of Jesus. He has been born. And you talk about his humanity and his deity, the hypostatic union, the incarnation, so many theological issues that you could spend Christmas Day, studying and diving in and digging in deep. And my church, it doesn't matter if Christmas falls on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Thursday, it doesn't matter. We will have a service on Christmas. We always have. And when I say a service, it's not light a few candles, sing a song, and go home. It's an hour of preaching, and everyone knows that. And we're kind of viewed as the weird church, but I mean, if it's about Christ, we make it about Christ. And I think you have to struggle because, look how fast Advent's going by. Before we know it, we're 11 days to Christmas now, and before we know it, Christmas will be here. You'll wake up and then you'll go to sleep, and Christmas is over for another year. So do what you can between now and Christmas to really make it about Christ, that you grow spiritually during this time and you grow in your understanding of one of the most amazing doctrines of the Incarnation. Really meditate deeply on it, read books about it. I think Athanasius wrote a book on the Incarnation, if you can find it, which is a great historical read. It'll probably melt your mind, but it'll be definitely worth it. There's many great things you can listen to and read and study. You can read all the accounts of Jesus' birth. You can read the Gospel of John in chapter 1 about the Word becoming flesh. There's so many passages to meditate on, to study, to think about, to talk about as a family and with friends, to really make it a special time. And that's when you wake up on December the 26th, you can say that was a wonderful time, and then you can focus on, because historically Christmas wasn't a day, it was a season. And most people have completely forgotten that was the case in church history. So hopefully everyone will give that much thought. So any final comments or questions we'll start with Drake.
Yeah, what's the name of that book?
I think it's called On the Incarnation by Athanasius.
Okay.
And of course, the Athanasius was so important in fighting for the doctrine of the Trinity. So it's pretty deep read, and if you can find it, and it would be interesting to get your thoughts.
No, that's I think all the issues I want to talk about are addressed. So.
All right, and Priscilla, any questions or thoughts?
No, I think we went over a lot of stuff. Again, I'm thankful for you two to even invite me to talk about Christmas. I've learned so much, and I want to just thank you two for willing to talk to me about it. I don't really know too many people that I can actually talk to about this. So thank you guys. I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in and listening. I hope that this has been beneficial for you as much as it's been beneficial to me, that you're keeping this Christmas centered on Christ, and that if anybody challenges you on the subject of Christmas, hopefully we gave some thoughts that you can think about, and we triggered some thoughts in you that you go and do your own studying too. So I think this was very beneficial. So thank you guys again.
All right.
Thank you guys for inviting me, because I was I'm the odd man out. So.
Well, you came up with the whole idea, so.
No, I didn't.
Actually, Drake came up with the whole idea, and then we just added to some of his thoughts, and it turned into what it turned into. But hopefully, for those who are listening on the Divine Science site and those who listen on the News and Focus program, hopefully this will be beneficial and challenging to everyone. And really, I know there's lots of controversy, but do your best to just take a deep breath, take the next few days, the next 11 days, and focus on Christ. There can't be anything wrong about that. And then celebrate the incarnation of Christ on Christmas. And I'm going to say it, Merry Christmas. Enjoy it. Make it a time that's fun for the family, but make it a time where you learn about Christ and that he is glorified in all that you do. And would Priscilla and Drake like to say Merry Christmas to everyone?
Oh, yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope everybody has a great time celebrating the birth of our Savior and a great time with your guys' family. Be safe, too.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Drink lots of eggnog because I will be, of course, virgin eggnog.
Yeah, I gotta have eggnog, and of course pumpkin pie. All right. Well, the tradition of this program. Yeah, I've got to. Well, the tradition of this program is to let Priscilla end it. So, Priscilla, it's all yours. Wrap this up.
Alrighty. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for listening, taking the time out. I know everybody has busy schedules. College students, good luck with your guys' finals if you haven't done them already. I feel your pain. Good luck, Pastor Hammock, too. You are a college student, so good luck with all your work. Just want to say good night, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Hope everybody is safe. And again, Merry Christmas and God bless.
Well, tired and so weary, but I must